Hi kids, welcome to today's session. This is Himanshi Singh, your biology master teacher at Vedantu. So I'm so happy to see you guys after so long. So in today's session kids, we are going to discuss about the diversity of the living organism. We will be talking about the plant life cycles and alternation of generation, which is a very important topic to understand everything about your plant kingdom, right? Along with this topic is very important in understanding your sexual reproduction in flowering plants. So if you understand this topic well, your sexual reproduction in the flowering plant will become easy peasy lemon squeezy. So with this, let's get started kids. Now before we start today's session, this is my introduction. I'm Himanshi Singh, your biology master teacher at Vedantu. Mentored and guided 1000+ student, 100% CBSE board result, and along with this kids, I have produced the best NEET biology score, that is 355 out of 360. This score was produced by one of my students. I am CSIR NET JRF qualified and I have done my MSc from Miranda House, Delhi University. So with this, moving forward to the next one kids. So in today's session, we are going to talk about your plant life cycle and alternation of generation. So let's get started. Now what exactly do you understand by the alternation? Alternation means that every now and then we are going to see a little bit of changes, right? So this kind of changes are present in the plant's life cycle, and the entire topic is known as plant life cycle and alternation of generation. So what exactly happens in a sexually reproducing plant? In a sexually reproducing plant, there are two different phases or the two different types of plant bodies known as Sporophyte and Gametophyte. So to understand this one, I'm going to take a blank slide for you guys and we are going to talk about this from the very basics. So we are talking about the plant phase, also known as plant body, right? So there are two different types of plant bodies that you can see. The first one is Gametophyte that we are going to discuss. Another one is Sporophyte. So Sporophyte and Gametophyte, you can see that there is presence of one common word in both of them, that is phyte. Phyte means plant, right? So this is the plant that is present, Gametophyte and Sporophyte. The Gametophyte is such plant body that is always haploid, right? So Gametophyte is a haploid phase. It is the haploid phase, which means any haploid cell, every haploid cell is a part of your haplophyte, right? It is a part of your gametophyte. So all the haploid cell, it is going to include all the haploid cells or plant body, right? It is going to include all the haploid cells or your plant body. What is the function of this gametophyte? The function is to produce gametes, right? So ye kya karega bachcha? It will produce our gametes. So we have two different types of plant phases. The first one is gametophyte. The gametophyte is haploid phase, right? So jitne bhi hamare paas haploid cells present hai, all these haploid cells and the body is going to form your gametophytic phase or your gametophyte, right? The main function of this gametophyte is to produce gametes. It is going to produce your gametes. Now what will happen in these gametes? These gametes will fuse together, right? They will fuse or they will undergo fertilization, and after fertilization they will produce a sporophyte. They are going to produce a sporophyte. So let's talk about a sporophyte, right? What exactly this sporophyte is. So sporophyte on the other hand is the diploid phase, right? It's the diploid phase where there will be presence of two sets of chromosome, all the diploid cells and the diploid body, right? All the diploid cells and diploid body is the part of your sporophyte. Along with this, the function of the sporophyte is to produce spores, right? They are going to produce spores. The main function is to produce spores. This is the sporophyte, right? Now talking about this sporophyte, it's a diploid phase, right? What kind of phase it is? It is a diploid phase. 2n, every cell, every body that is 2n will be included in your sporophyte, which is going to produce your spore. Now these spores are your haploid cell, right? So the sporophyte, which is a diploid plant body, is going to produce your haploid spores with the help of a division known as meiosis. This will occur with the help of meiosis. So meiosis will occur in your sporophyte, in some of the cells of a sporophyte, usually known as spore mother cells. These spore mother cells will undergo division and they will result in the formation of the haploid cells known as spores. What happens into these spores? What is the function of these spores? The spores will germinate, right? The spores will germinate, or you can simply say that they will undergo mitosis to produce gametophyte. They are going to produce your gametophyte. So this is how your alternation of generation is going to occur. We have a gametophytic phase or a gametophytic plant, right? This gametophyte is the haploid plant body. This haploid plant body is going to produce gametes, right? These gametes are haploid and they are produced by mitosis. These haploid gametes will undergo fertilization, resulting in formation of a sporophyte. The sporophyte, right? This sporophyte, which is the diploid phase, is going to produce spores with the help of meiosis, and these spores are going to result in the formation of your gametophyte, that is the haploid plant phase. You can see that there will be alteration of generation. इसी alternation of generation को हम आज पढ़ने वाले हैं. Now with this, ये तो हमारा हो गया कि भाई क्या comparison है आपके gametophyte और sporophyte का. What exactly your gametophyte and your sporophyte is? Your gametophyte is the haploid phase. So the main points that you have to remember is this one. Your gametophyte is the haploid phase and your sporophyte is your diploid phase. That these are the two very important points that you have to remember. इसके साथ साथ बच्चों, let's draw a diagram and understand how there is alternation between them. So first of all, we are going to have your gametophyte, right? This is your gametophyte, which is haploid in nature. This gametophyte is going to produce your two different gametes, one male and one female gamete will be produced, right? One male and one female gamete will be produced. Both the gametes are haploid in nature, right? Both the gametes are haploid in nature. These haploid gametes will undergo fertilization, right? They will undergo fertilization, also known as syngamy. Syngamy means that there will be fusion of your cells. So there will be syngamy or fertilization. This syngamy or fertilization will result in the formation of a diploid cell, right? This will result in the formation of a diploid cell known as zygote. So zygote will be produced. Your zygote will be formed. This zygote is a diploid cell. So from zygote, your sporophytic phase is going to start, right? Your sporophytic phase starts from your zygote. Now finally, this zygote will undergo mitosis, resulting in formation of a sporophyte. Sporophyte is a diploid plant body. In this sporophyte, there will be formation of your spores in the special cells known as spore mother cells, right? These are your 2N diploid cells. These cells will undergo meiosis and they will result in the formation of your spores. A haploid cell known as spores will be formed. These spores will undergo germination or mitosis, resulting in formation of your gametophyte. So this is your entire alternation of generation is, or the plant life cycle is, right? So you can see this is your plant life cycle. Let's understand the type of cell division that will occur. So we have the gametophyte. सबसे पहले हमारे पास gametophyte present है. This gametophyte will undergo mitosis. ये gametophyte mitosis show करेगा and it will result in formation of your male and female gamete, right? The male and female gamete will undergo fertilization, also known as syngamy, right? Fertilization, also known as syngamy, and it will form your zygote. ये zygote बच्चा आपका क्या करेगा? Mitosis करेगा. This zygote is going to show your mitosis, and this mitosis will result in the formation of your sporophyte. The sporophyte is going to have certain special cells known as spore mother cells that are diploid again. They will undergo meiosis, right? They will undergo meiosis, resulting in formation of the spores, and the spores will undergo germination, or also we can say that it will undergo mitosis, resulting in formation of your gametophyte. So this is your entire alternation of generation. This is how the alternation of generation will occur. Now as you can see over here, the portion that I have drawn in your red color represents your gametophytic phase, and the blue portion represents your sporophytic phase. So we have two different types of phases that you can see. The first one over here is your gametophytic phase. Right, this is your gametophytic phase. The next one that you can see over here is your sporophytic phase, right? This is your sporophytic phase. So these are the two different types of phases that you can see, right? These are the two different types of phases that you can see. Sporophytic phase and your gametophytic phase. That's it. This is your entire life cycle of a plant. I hope it is clear to everyone. Take your time, understand this, and in case if you have any doubt, you can drop it in the comment section. I will revert back to you guys, right? So this is the life cycle, and these are the two different phases in which there will be alternation of generation. So now let's come back to the slides where we were. So the life cycle of a sexually reproducing plant shows two distinct phases. One is sporophyte, another one is gametophyte. Sporophytic generation or the sporophyte generation is the diploid phase, and this diploid phase will undergo meiosis to form your gametophytic phase, which is haploid. If we talk about the cell specifically, there will be production of your spores, right? So they are going to produce your spores. These spores will undergo mitosis or germination to form your haploid phase, that is gametophyte, right? So the haploid phase is known as gametophytic phase. This gametophytic phase is going to produce your gametes. The gametes will undergo fertilization or syngamy to produce your diploid cell, that is zygote. The zygote will undergo mitosis and it will result in the formation of your sporophyte. So this is what your alternation of generation is, right? Changes between your sporophytic generation and your gametophytic generation. Changes between your sporophyte and your gametophyte. So this is what your plant life cycle is and alternation of the generation is. So the tendency to alternate between the sporophytic and the gametophytic generation is known as alternation of generations. This is what you can see. The diagram explains the alternation of generation and the typical life cycle of a plant. Now in this life cycle, there are certain variation that results in formation of the three different types of life cycle present in the plants, right? So there are slight variations, right? There are slight variations that result in formation of three different types of life cycle. The first one is Haplodiplantic life cycle. The next one is Diplontic life cycle. And the last one is Haplodiplantic life cycle, right? So these are the different types of life cycles that you can see on your screen. Now what is the difference or the variation in them? The first one that you can read is your Haplodiplantic life cycle. Haplodiplantic life cycle means that it is going to have your haplodiptic phase, which means there will be mainly presence of your gametophyte, and the sporophyte is very short-lived, right? So in your haplodiptic phase, the sporophyte, which is the diploid phase, is very short-lived, right? This is very short-lived. Rest everything is going to remain same. In case of your diplontic life cycle, diplontic means your sporophyte is going to remain more, right? It is more dominant and it is going to, the plant will be mainly present in your sporophytic phase or your diplontic phase, whereas the gametophytic phase will be short-lived, right? This will be short-lived. And in case of your haplodiplantic life cycle, both the haplodiplantic and the diplontic phase, that is your gametophytic and your sporophytic phase, are long-lived, right? So यहाँ पे हमारे पास यही वेरिएशन प्रेजेंट है. हैप्लॉन्टिक लाइफ साइकिल में आपके पास स्पोरोफाइट कैसा होगा? शॉर्ट लिव्ड होगा. डिप्लॉन्टिक लाइफ फेज में आपके लाइफ साइकिल में कैसा होगा? डिप्लॉन्टिक लाइफ साइकिल में आपके पास शॉर्ट लिव्ड गैमेटोफाइट प्रेजेंट होगा. और आपके हैप्लोडिप्लॉन्टिक के अंदर दोनों ही फेजेस कैसे होंगे बच्चे? लॉन्ग लिव्ड होंगे, राइट? चलो, so let's talk about all three of them one by one. The first one that you can see is your haplodiplantic life cycle. In this haplodiplantic life cycle, what is going to happen? There is presence of a sporophytic generation represented only by your zygote, right? So in this kind of life cycle, your sporophyte is represented only by zygote, right? Which is the single cell. Zygote is a single cell, and this single cell is short-lived, right? What kind of cell is present? There is presence of a short-lived cell. तो जो आपका जाइगोट है, सिर्फ एक जाइगोट, सिर्फ एक सिंगल सेल आपका स्पोरोफिटिक जनरेशन रिप्रेजेंट कर रही है. रेस्ट ऑल द ड्यूरेशन इज टेकन अप बाय योर गैमेटोफाइट, राइट। तो मान लेते हैं कि हमारे पास 24 आवर्स के लिए प्लांट सर्वाइव कर रहा है। लेट्स इमेजिन 24 आवर्स, और यू कैन टेक इट फॉर वन ईयर, यू कैन टेक इट फॉर 1 मंथ, राइट। तो हमारे पास ऐसा मान लेते हैं कि प्लांट 24 आवर्स के लिए सर्वाइव कर रहा है, जिसमें से बच्चे आपके पास सिर्फ 1 आवर एक जायगोट प्रेजेंट होगा। दिस जायगोट विल क्विकली अंडरगो मियोसिस टू प्रोड्यूस योर स्पोर्स। तो मियोसिस इन द जायगोट, आपका स्पोरोफाइट क्या करता है, मियोसिस शो करता है। तो जायगोट के अंदर मियोसिस हो जाएगा एंड इट विल रिजल्ट इन द फॉर्मेशन ऑफ योर हैप्लॉइड स्पोर्स। So the zygote will undergo meiosis resulting in formation of your haploid spores. These spores will result in the formation of gametophyte. In such kind of life cycle, in such kind of haplontic life cycle, gametophyte is your main plant body that is photosynthetic, that is going to perform all the function. So we call it as the main or the dominant photosynthetic phase, right? It is the main or photosynthetic phase which is free living. So how the diagram is going to look like, this is how the diagram is for your haplontic life cycle. In your haplontic life cycle, the main plant body is a gametophyte, right? So the main plant body is a gametophyte. This is main, or we can call it as dominant plant body. This dominant plant body is going to perform all the function. It is going to show photosynthesis, it is going to do everything that a plant body is supposed to do. Now this gametophyte will show gametogenesis, which means formation of gametes, right? It will show formation of gametes. This is what the function of gametophyte is, formation of gametes. These gametes will be formed, and now these gametes will undergo syngamy, that is fertilization. After fertilization, there will be formation of your zygotes, and this zygote is the only cell that represents your sporophytic generation. It represents your sporophytic generation, and the sporophytic generation is present inside your sporophytic generation, and the sporophytic generation develops inside. Usually it is present inside, or it is dependent upon your gametophyte, right? It is dependent upon your gametophyte, and it is short-lived as well. What kind of life is present? It is short-lived. So let me write it somewhere. Let's use this space. Talking about the sporophyte, sporophyte is represented by single cell, that is zygote, single short-lived cell, that is zygote, and this zygote is dependent, right? Zygote is dependent on gametophyte. तो जो आपका zygote बनेगा बच्चों, ये zygote आपके gametophyte के ऊपर dependent होगा, dependent for the food, dependent for your shelter, right? This kind of life cycle is going to have your spores formation. The zygote will quickly undergo meiosis, resulting in the formation of the spores, and these spores will result in the formation of your gametophyte. This kind of life cycle is shown by many algae. Many algae are going to show such kind of life cycle. Example is Volvox, Pyrogyra, Chlamydomonas, etc. So this is your haplontic life cycle, where gametophyte is the main plant body, and this gametophyte is going to take the majority of the life cycle, which is going to have a single cell, right? A single cell which represents your sporophyte, that is zygote, and this zygote will be short-lived and which will undergo meiosis immediately, resulting in formation of your spores. Now moving to the next one, the next type of life cycle that we can see is a diplotic life cycle. So in a diplotic life cycle, what is going to happen? The diplotic sporophyte is the dominant photosynthetic independent phase of the plant. So the main plant body is your diploid sporophyte. It is the main plant body or your dominant plant body, which is photosynthetic independent phase of the plant. So you can see sporophyte is the main plant body. In this sporophyte, right, inside the sporophyte, which is not shown over here, but inside the sporophyte, what is going to happen? So inside the sporophyte, there will be formation of your spores, right? The spores will be formed. These spores will result in the formation of gametophyte, right? There will be formation of your gametophyte, and this gametophyte will undergo gametogenesis, which means inside the sporophytes. Right now inside the sporophytes, sporophyte की body के अंदर ही क्या होगा बच्चे, आपका gametes का formation हो जाएगा, right? So there will be formation of your spores, and these spores will germinate inside the sporophyte itself, resulting in formation of your gametophyte. So let me draw this life cycle for you guys. In this case, what is going to happen? We have your sporophyte. This is the sporophyte, that is your 2n body, right? This 2n body, the main function of this 2n body is to produce your spores, right? The main function is to produce your spores. So it will produce your spores, and these spores will undergo germination, right? They will germinate inside sporophyte. They will germinate inside sporophyte, and it will result in the formation of your gametophyte, right? So the gametophyte will be formed inside. The gametophyte will be formed inside the sporophyte. Talking about this gametophyte, there are few important points. So let's write down these points. Present inside sporophyte, and along with this, it is very reduced. Reduced means that there will be presence of few cells, right? There will be presence of few cells, reduced to very few cells, and it is dependent on sporophyte, right? It is dependent on sporophyte. It is dependent on sporophyte. Sporophyte for the shelter, sporophyte for the food and nutrition. Now finally, what is going to happen? This gametophyte will result in the formation of your male and female gametes. The male and female gametes will be produced. These gametes are both haploid. The haploid gametes will undergo fertilization, also known as syngamy. And after syngamy, what is going to happen? There will be formation of your zygote. This diploid cell, this zygote will undergo mitosis, resulting in formation of your sporophyte. So what exactly is going to happen in this condition? This entire development, right? This entire development, all this development will occur inside your sporophyte. So the germination of the spore, right? Germination of the spore, formation of the gametophyte, and the development of the gamete, everything will occur inside the sporophyte. Finally, the gametes that are produced will undergo fertilization, resulting in formation of the zygote, and there will be formation of your sporophyte. So this kind of life cycle is known as Diplontic life cycle. Why are we calling it as Diplontic life cycle? Because in this case, you will never see a gametophyte, right? The gametophyte will not be visible to us outside the plant, right? And even if it is present, it is very reduced and short-lived, right? It is very reduced and short-lived. So this kind of life cycle is known as Diplontic life cycle. A better diagram is given over here, right? So in case of your Diplontic phase, the main and the dominant phase is your sporophyte. This sporophyte is photosynthetic, independent phase of the plant. The gametophytic phase is represented by the single to very few cells known as gametophyte, and it is present inside. I should not say present, it is developed inside, right? It is developed inside sporophyte. So the development of the egg, development of the pollen grains, both of them is going to occur inside your sporophyte. This is about your Diplontic phase. This kind of Diplontic life cycle is shown by your two category of the plants, that is your gymnosperms and your angiosperms. So the seed bearing plants, that is your gymnosperms and the angiosperms, are going to show this kind of life cycle known as Diplontic life cycle. The next one is Haplodiplantic life cycle. So this kind of life cycle are shown by your intermediate plants, that is Bryophytes and Pteridophytes. In this, what is going to happen? Both the phases are multicellular and often free living, right? So both the phases are multicellular and often free living, but there will be slight variation, right? So let's talk about the life cycle present in your bryophytes and pteridophytes respectively. So the first case that we are going to discuss is about your bryophyte. This is represented by a bryophyte where the dominant independent photosynthetic thalloid erect phase is represented by your haploid gametophyte. So the main plant body is your gametophyte. The main body is your gametophyte, right? This gametophyte is going to result in the formation of the gametes. The gametes will undergo syngamy, resulting in formation of the zygote and your sporophyte. Now the sporophyte that you can see, all this process is going to occur inside gametophyte, right? This will occur inside gametophyte, which means your sporophyte is dependent. Your sporophyte is dependent. So there will be presence of multicellular sporophyte, which is short-lived. There is presence of short-lived multicellular sporophyte, which is totally or partially is dependent upon the gametophyte for anchorage and nutrition. So it is going to take the shelter. Anchorage means it will take the shelter and nutrition. It will take the shelter and nutrition from your gametophyte, right? So this kind of life cycle is shown by your bryophyte. The next category that you can see is in case of your pteridophytes. So in case of the pteridophytes, they are going to exhibit the similar kind of pattern, but here the sporophyte is the main plant body. The sporophyte is the main or dominant plant body, which is going to result in the formation of your gametophyte, and this gametophyte is free living, right? This is free living, which means it is not dependent on anyone. So the diploid sporophyte is represented by a dominant independent photosynthetic vascular plant body. Vascular means that there will be presence of your xylem and phloem. Xylem and phloem are present in this plant, and along with this it alternates with the multicellular saprophytic, which means grows on your dead and decaying matter, and autotrophic. So either it can be a saprophyte or it can be a autotrophic independent short-lived haploid gametophyte. So this kind of life cycle is represented by your pteridophytes. There is one very important point that you guys should note down, that is they are going to show independent. They are going to show independent alternation of generation. So only in case of pteridophytes you can see that neither your sporophyte nor your gametophyte, none of them are dependent upon each other. In case of your Heplantic life cycle, which was shown by your algae, there was presence of your dependent sporophyte. In case of your bryophyte, there was presence of a dominant gametophyte and your dependent sporophyte. So let me summarize it by writing it down. So let's create a kind of table. So we have algae, we have bryophytes, we have pteridophytes, and then we have your seed bearing plants. Seed bearing plant means your angiosperms and your gymnosperms. Let's write it as gymno plus angiosperms, right? So these are your gymnosperms and your angiosperms. So what is going to happen in these plants, right? We are going to discuss about the main plant body. We are going to talk about your we are going to talk about the other special points, right? So main plant body. In case of your algae life cycle, first of all let's talk about the life cycle, and then we are going to discuss about the main plant body. So the first one is life cycle, that is shown by them. The next one is the main plant body. So talking about the life cycle, in case of your algae, there is presence of Haplodyplantic life cycle, right? There is presence of Haplodyplantic life cycle. Along with this, talking about the main plant body, the main plant body is haploid phase, right? Haploid phase is your main plant body. That is gametophyte, right? Gametophyte is your main plant body. And there is presence of dependent sporophyte. What is going to happen? There is presence of Sporophyte represented by just zygote. Represented by just zygote, which is short-lived, right? Which is short-lived. That's it. I hope these points are clear to you guys, right? The next one that you can see is your bryophyte. So in case of your bryophyte, there is presence of Haplodiplantic Lifecycle. Haplodiplantic Lifecycle. The main phase in case of your Haplodiplantic Lifecycle is your Gametophyte. Gametophyte is the main plant body which is going to have your dependent. There is presence of your dependent Sporophyte. Both of them are multicellular, right? The next one is your pteridophyte having Haplodiplantic Lifecycle. They have Haplodiplantic Lifecycle, and in this case what is going to happen? The main plant body is your Sporophyte. Sporophyte is your main plant body, and there is presence of independent, right? There is presence of independent Gametophyte. There is presence of independent Gametophyte. So they are going to show your very important point. They are going to show your independent alternation of generation. Independent alternation of generations. This is about your pteridophytes, and the last one that you can see is your gymnosperms and angiosperms that show your Diplontic life cycle. In this case, sporophyte is main plant body, and inside this sporophyte there will be presence of your dependent, short-lived, highly reduced gametophyte. That's it. So this is going to summarize everything about your life cycle. So we have algae, bryophyte, pteridophyte, gymnosperms plus angiosperms. Now with this, bacho, let's move forward. So you guys can take a screenshot of this one, and let's move forward to the next point. The next one is your haplodiplotic life cycle shown by pteridophytes and your bryophytes. Now there are some exceptions to the life cycle. We know that the algae mainly represents your Heplantic phase, but there are some of the algae that represents your other different types of life cycle. So the exceptions are in front of you. So interestingly, while most algae are Heplantic in their phase, some of them such as Ectocorpus, Polysiphonia and the kelps are Haplodiplotic, and your Fucus is Diplontic. So Fucus is Diplontic, that is FD. You have to remember it with the help of example or a trick, that is FD. And the next one that you can see is your Haplodiplotic life cycle, which is represented by your kelp. So you have to remember only three, you have to remember only one single word. I'm going to give you a trick to remember this one. You have to remember only kelp. So K for kelps, E for Ectocorpus, right? Ectocorpus. L for laminaria. Laminaria is another example of your kelp, and the last one is Polysiphonia. Last one is Polysiphonia, right? That's it. The last one is Polysiphonia. So these are the examples that you have to remember, talking about the exceptions of your alternation of generation. Usually we can see the questions coming up from these part, and it's going to become easy peasy lemon squeezy, because all you have to do is remember the example, that is kelp. So kelp, K for kelps, E for Ectocorpus, L for laminaria, which is another kelp, and P for Polysiphonia, right? So this is all that you have to remember. So So with this kids, it's your quiz time. Now we are going to move forward and it's your quiz time. But before we start the quiz, there are some of the concept clearing questions that I would like to ask you guys. And here comes your question, right? So the first question that I'm going to ask you is, which one is the first cell of gametophyte? So which one is the first cell of gametophyte? The options are in front of you. Option A is spore. Option B is gamete. And option C is your none. Let me make a little change in the question. Which is one of the following is the first cell of gametophytic generation? Yes, which one of the following is the first cell of gametophytic generation? Quickly give me the answer. Spore, gamete and none of the above. Take your time, think about it. And the correct answer to this question is spore, right? Spore is the first haploid cell that is formed, right? Which represents your gametophytic generation. So the first cell of your gametophytic generation is your spore. Talking about the first cell of your sporophyte. Can anyone tell me first cell of your sporophyte? Sporophytic generation, first cell of sporophytic generation. So the first cell of your sporophytic generation is spore, gamete or zygote. Spore, gamete or zygote. So the correct answer over here will be your zygote, right? Zygote is your first diploid cell. Zygote is your first diploid cell which represents the first cell of your gametophytic generation. So these were two concept clearing questions. I hope you guys have got them and understood why we are calling them as the first cell of your gametophytic generation and the first cell of your sporophytic generation. Gametophytic generation represents the haploid phase and the first haploid cell to be formed is your spore. The gametophytic generation represents your diploid phase and the first diploid cell to be formed is your zygote. Moving forward to the quiz time. So with this kids, here comes your first question. Which one of the following has the Haplodiplantic life cycle? Read the question carefully. Funaria, Markensia, Shelaginella, all of the above. So this kind of question becomes little difficult when we talk about your diversity in the living organisms, right? When we talk about the diversity, whether it is your Monera, Protista, any kind of kingdom, right? Whether it is plant kingdom, animal kingdom or mycota. In all of them, you will see this kind of difficult questions, right? All of them are considered to be your high level and very confusing questions because the questions can be asked straightforward, right? They could be the examples such as algae, bryophyte, pteridophyte, gymnosperms, angiosperms, or you are going to see some particular examples belonging to your different classes. For example, like Funaria, Markensia and Shelaginella. So read the question carefully. Which one of the following has Haplodiplantic life cycle? I will give you 15 seconds to mark the correct answer and your time to select the correct answer starts now. Time's up. Let's see what's the correct answer. The correct answer is all of the above, right? So Funaria, Markensia, Shelaginella, which are the example of your bryophytes and pteridophytes, are going to have your Haplodiplantic life cycle. Next one, which kind of life cycle pattern is exhibited by your conifers? Haplontic, Diplontic, Haplodiplantic and none of the above. What kind of life cycle pattern is exhibited by your conifers? So for this you have to understand or remember what the conifers are and then you can select your correct answer. In case kids, if you have any doubt in the entire concept, right, you can drop your doubts in the comment section. I will revert back to each one of you. Now please read the question carefully and your time to select the correct answer starts now. Time's up, and the correct answer is your Diplontic, right? So they are going to show your Diplontic phase. The word conifer means, right? The word conifer means that we are talking about your gymnosperms, right? We are talking about your gymnosperms. So gymnosperms are your conifers, and they are going to have your Diplontic life cycle. With this, here comes your next question. Which one of the following statement defines the alternation of generation? Read the options carefully. Take your time. Fine, Kate. So your time to select the correct answer starts now. You can answer in the chat box. You can answer in the comment box. Good job, kids. And the correct answer is option C. Option 2, that is tendency to alternate between the sporophytic and the gametophytic generation, is known as alternation of generation, which is represented by your plants. Next one, haplontic life cycle generally occurs in most algae, bryophyte, pteridophyte, gymnosperms. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Yes, very easy peasy lemon squeezy. Time starts now. Done, and the correct answer is most algae, right? Most algae are going to show your haplontic life cycle. Next question on your screen, which one of the following statement is correct regarding your haplontic life cycle? Read the statements carefully. Yes, done. So your time to select the correct answer starts now. Time's up, and the correct answer is all the statements are correct. The question is talking about your haplontic life cycle, and in your haplontic life cycle, the dominant photosynthetic phase is your free-living gametophyte. The sporophytic generation is represented only by the zygote, and this zygote is not a free-living sporophyte, right? Next one, which one of the following phase is dominant in your bryophyte? So it's a very nice question. Which of the following phase is dominant in your bryophyte? Gametophyte, sporophyte, both gametophyte and sporophyte, and option 4, none of the above. So your time to select the correct answer starts now. It's a very nice question. Let's see how many of you are going to give me the correct answer. Time's up, and the correct answer is gametophyte, right? So gametophyte is the dominant phase in your bryophyte. This gametophyte is haploid, and this is a dominant phase in case of your algae and bryophyte. Algae and bryophytes, right? The next one is sporophyte. Sporophyte is dominant in case of your gymnosperms and angiosperms and your pteridophytes. So in your pteridophytes, gymnosperms and your angiosperms, right? There is presence of your dominant phase, that is sporophyte. Moving to the next one, the next question is which one of the following algae is diplontic? Volvox, Pyrogyra, Fucus, none of the above. Which one of the following is your diplontic algae. So your time to select the correct answer starts now. Time's up and the correct answer is Fucus, right? So you have to remember the example, that is FD, right? FD represents your Diplontic phase. Moving to the next one. The next one is, which one of the following algae is Haplodiplantic? Polysiphonia, Ectocorpus, scalps, and all of the above. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, yes. So your time to select the correct answer starts now. Time's up and the correct answer for this question is your all of the above. So Polysiphonia, Ectocorpus and kelps, all of them are your Haplodiplotic algae, the algae that is going to have Haplodiplotic life cycle. Next question, the life cycle of the Ectocorpus and the Fucus respectively are. Time to select the answer starts now. Time's up and the correct answer is Haplodiplotic. Haplodiplotic life cycle is shown by your kelps, Ectocorpus and Polysiphonia, and your Fucus is going to show your Diplontic life cycle. With this, kids, we are done with your session. Thank you so much. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button, share the video, comment your doubts in the comment box and let me know how much you guys liked the session in your comment box. Don't forget to share the video and subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't subscribed yet. So that's all for today's session, kids. Thank you so much for this amazing session. I'll see you guys soon. Till then, always keep on smiling and have the faith in yourself that yes, you can crack your examination. Bye-bye, everyone.